Some nights ago, I was reintroduced to the original designs for Pokemon, and I don't think I had ever seen this complete, deep, comprehensive list. So I thought I would make a video reaction of what I think about the original designs of Pokemon based off this list. The ones that jumped out at me the most. Dragonair. They had originally a more white version of him with some blue going on the more extreme parts of him, like the scales and stuff. He had scales originally. And I gotta say, I preferred that design better. But if you were going to scratch that design, how about if you made him an ice type instead? Make him either use a stone for you to achieve that evolution or just completely make it maybe an Eevee transformation. But I don't think Eevee can change shapes, right? He has to remain kind of like dog looking, which makes sense. But for this instance, I'm saying that the original design of Dragonair looked like he could have been his own thing. Or just make it an ice evolution. But that looked really nice. To me, it looks better than what we ended up with, especially the ears. He has Vaporeon ears. Milk Tank. I kept calling him Milk Tank this entire time, and I didn't realize that his name is Militank, or her name is Militank. Anyway, the final version, we got it looking there more blush instead of pink-ish. I feel like the original is a little better because I feel like a Pokemon like that, that's a cow pretty much, you would expect for them to be a little fattened up. And this is a more maternal looking character. So I feel like having more weight and more roundness was more attractive for this character. And instead of having like a sad face, they gave him a little bit of a smile. I think I can see why they would make him a little smaller so that his legs can, you know, move better, I guess. But personally, I think I like the original better, but I'm still happy with what we ended up with. So I wouldn't say they necessarily botched it. I don't think it could be his own Pokemon because it just looks very Miltank, but yeah, not bad. I think that one would have been hard to come to a conclusion for. I feel like they just like the cleaner, slimmer look. Espion. This one absolutely killed me because that shade of yellow that we observe, that was actually the shade of yellow that every time I hear the name Espion, I think about specifically. So I was thinking that maybe what you could have done is to incorporate that gold into the fur, maybe in the form of an ombre effect, like maybe make the top of the body be more golden and then the limbs make them more purpley, or make it kind of like an acid wash on jeans, that kind of effect. But definitely incorporate the golden elements to it. That would have been super cool, super dope. Not sure why they didn't. Or better yet, I feel like make it look like fish. You know how fish have scales? I'm not saying give Espeon a scaly fur, but say for every other scale, you have like the golden woven into them. Something like that. But I think the final Espeon is good enough. I like the detail on the ears, that dark going on. Imagine if the golden one would have had those dark details to them. I think it would have been a tough choice to make. I like the original's legs a little better, like the, I guess, bean paws like cats design. But overall, I still think we ended up with a decently elegant Espeon. Politoed. I was completely blown away by this design. That Politoed looks like he could be his own design, the original Politoed. I understand why they would want to clean his act up a little bit, but I really think that the original wasn't really too bad. It actually looks more realistically frog looking compared to what we ended up with, but I do like the yellow on Politoed. So maybe what the original could have used is a little bit of a color palette revision or make him his own Pokemon. Dragonite, this one floored me because to me, the original looks much better. Look at those wings and look at those claws and look at that tail. And of course, he's a little bit more rotund in the gut. But I feel like that Dragonite does feel more powerful, more of a menace, I guess. But the one we ended up with, it just looks too clean, too slim. It just doesn't look drawn to scale. I would think Dragonite is a pretty big Pokemon, but probably isn't too big. Maybe what, 5'7", just like me. I feel like Dragonite is probably not one of the taller Pokemons. I've seen a video about the scale of Pokemon, and some of them were shockingly small, and some of them were stupidly tall for no reason. But yeah, I think this version of Dragonite, the original, it was superior. The original Poliwrath, the crown doesn't really make sense. Why not make it Polyking by that point? I do agree that was an update. I think the Poliwrath we ended up with was more proper. And again, they really kept going for smaller limbs or no limbs at all and more roundness to them, but I'm glad they gave him longer legs. Because otherwise, I look at the original as you're just a water Snorlax. This one absolutely killed me. The original Raikou or Raikou, I've never heard his name. But anyway, the original looks like he could be his own dark electric type Pokemon. Like, I can see him forming an alliance with Umbreon or something. Maybe not. But I really like that look to him. A legendary dark electric. I can see him hanging out with Houndoom, Houndour, and good old Umbreon. He just looks like a nighttime Pokemon. It looks cool. The redesign, I like it because it's yellow and indicative of him being an electric type still. But I feel like the original has a little bit of a Super Saiyan look going on. I just feel like for a legendary, if you make him a dark legendary, then great, but I think he should have been kept. I'm not saying the final version is bad. I'm just saying that I like what I see with the original to a point that maybe he should have been his own thing. And if you're not gonna make him a legendary, then make him a rare but distinguished regular Pokemon. You know what I mean? The kind of Pokemon that you have to go to a specific place to score them because they're rather rare in the wild. Tyrogue, I gotta say, man, I like the original better. Especially since he's wearing a boxer kind of helmet thing. Not that the final version doesn't look good, but I feel like maybe you could have given him an evolution. And I really like the fists on the original. They're big and you can tell that this is a boxer type. Maybe I would have preferred slightly longer legs on the original and then give him some shoes. And I like the wrap on the body of the final version, the waist trainer looking thing. And of course the shorts, just a slight redesign. Adding a few more details to the original would have made it work, but I like the original better. The small one, the final version we got, is good, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that I would have liked to have had the original. Maybe make it an evolution. Make that original slim down into final Tyrogue. That would have been cool. Sunflora. This one is pretty cool. I like the original. I like the color scheme of the original. But at the same time, I can vouch for the final Sunflora only because original Sunflora looks like she's a shiny Pokemon already. And I think that shiny Pokemon, given that they're rare, it should be a feature that's more reserved. So I feel like the whole body being yellow like that, it could be confused for a shiny. Now, when it comes to the revision of the legs, I'm at a conflict. I'm not sure if I like the final better than the original, but I think maybe if I were to see it with a different color scheme, maybe I would gravitate more toward the original, but I think that was a good redesign. And of course, she got a whole lot slimmer too. But I think the original looked pretty good. If anything, I like that crown, the petals on the original better than the final version. So maybe if the final version had the crown of the original, I would 100% vouch for that final form. Now this one floored me too. Suicune. I've never officially heard these Pokemon names because when I played the gold version, I watched Johto, but I don't remember encountering these in those episodes. It's been so long. And then the Entei movie was like the last legendary Pokemon movie I saw. I don't remember them being in that movie. Maybe they were. But anyway, I think this could have been his own type. He could have been his own legendary ice Pokemon. The only other ice Pokemon I can think of is Articuno. Outside of that, I only had experience with Pokemon up until Gen 3, but the original 150, 151 plus through Johto, those are the ones I remember the most. Third generation, I learned about them because my brother had the Ruby version and I would play it here and there, but I didn't retain many of those characters. I'm telling you, I feel like that original Suicune should have been his own type. Look at the hair. Maybe make the fur look a little more spiky as opposed to loose, straight hair. I can understand why they had to revise it. And I agree that the revision is good, is great, is superior, is more attractive. I feel like that final version is probably one of my favorite Pokemon designs out there. But I really think that maybe the original could have been either one of those rare but not legendary ice types, or make this an ice legendary dog Pokemon. Shit, it looks like it could even be like not an Eevee evolution, but one of those dogs that you have fire type versions of those dogs. Maybe this could have been the ice type version of those dogs, like your maybe an Arcanine or something like that. But yeah, Suicune, I gotta say that was an upgrade. I'm loving the purple, as opposed to having the little whatever those are beads going on. I think the revised Suicune was so much better. Tentacool, this one, I gotta say, it feels like an update, but I also feel like if you were to slim down the original, it would have been better. He looks like he had ears, if you ask me. But yeah, not bad. I think I like the redesign better. Yeah, seriously, I'm glad they revised the things on his side because they did look like ears. And it also looks like he has a mustache. Maybe the final Tentacool could have had shorter, tinier tentacles, like under the nose looking part of him. But I think I prefer our final Tentacool. That was a good revision. Don't even get me started on this Elekid. I really think he looks like a contraceptive. That's all I gotta say. It was definitely an upgrade, and I like that he does have the shape of a plug in the final version. Now, the colors, I wish he would have had the colors of the original, but yeah, Elekid, it was a necessary revision, and I like that they gave him arms because he looks so defenseless without any limbs. Leafeon, I've never heard of him until I saw this list. I have no idea which generation he's from. Maybe fourth generation. I know for a fact he's not from third generation. But I can tell you that the first one having a bang haircut, bangs never look good on anyone or anything, so that's my first criticism. The original could have been their own Pokemon, if you ask me. But I think that the revised version is not bad. I just wish what is green on the original that they would have kept on the final version, except for the bangs haircut. Like, for instance, the tail on the original, I think is superior to the tail on the final. Now, I gotta say, the legs of the final are better than the original, but there's a part of me that wishes I saw more leaves coming out of it, kind of like the original. So maybe make those finger looking protrusions on the original a little shorter and give it to the final and paint them green, and that would have been better. Now, Nidoqueen, I think the original is a tad better. I like the face of the final a little better, but when it comes to body proportions, I feel like maybe the final Nidoqueen just needed to be stretched out just a little dab more, just a little bit. Make her look more maternal, because to me, when I see the first Nidoqueen, I think that is a good body type, body proportions for a maternal kind of character. But I gotta say, the eyes were too big, but they have to be given that her head and her whole body is big. But I feel like she looks shrunken. Maybe if the original had a slightly longer torso, that would have fixed her, because I feel like she looks small and round, whereas the final version is more refined. Final version is awesome. I love her. I think she's perfect the way she is. But when I saw the original, I thought, oh, I feel like I like the body proportions of the first one better. But put that chunkiness onto the final, and I think I would have liked her even more. The original Pichu absolutely made me cackle. What is that? And what do they have going on in their minds when it comes to just thinking about everything having a round shape? I mean, look at that bod. He was just a ball with ears and basically shoes on the bottom of the head. I'm glad that they gave him longer feet, I guess, and that they made that tail have a more lightning shape. Yeah, Final Pichu was certainly an upgrade. I'm glad that's what we got, because had I seen the original Pichu, I don't think I would have been able to play that game. I would have been laughing too much. I would probably pick on him all the time just to beat on him for looking stupid. Now, the original Lickitung and the final Lickitung, I feel like Lickitung is an unnecessary Pokemon. Honestly, I wish he didn't exist. And I feel like Lickitung exists to see what they can get away with, because I'm convinced that he's supposed to be a rated R Pokemon. That's all I gotta say. The original Gyarados versus final. I am so glad they went with the final version, because that original Gyarados would have probably ruined the game for me. We don't need a red looking dragon, caterpillar, eel. He didn't even have eyes, just nothing. Like, I can understand the color scheme because it wants to match Magikarp, but Magikarp evolving into that? Nah, man. I'm glad we got the final Gyarados. He even looks like he has a crown. And it seems to make more sense for a Magikarp to evolve into that. To me, the original Gyarados kind of looks like a devolved curse. Gengar. I gotta say, the original didn't look bad, but I feel like I like the final version better. I feel like the original is just too husky to be a ghost. The original Seal, I think this was an upgrade for sure. There's a part of me that wishes Seal had those spots on the coat, maybe on his belly perhaps. I like the spots, they look cute, but the original, he looks like a sickly, lazy, fat water cat with fangs protruding through the lips, through the mouth, whatever. I think the revision of Seal was good. I can agree that is an upgrade. The original Ivysaur versus final Ivysaur. I think the original, it was, I guess, an incomplete version of Venusaur. I don't like how the body looks, but I do like the plant growing in his back, the blooming flower thingy. But I feel like what we ended up with as the final product is probably more appropriate, because I feel like Bulbasaur is devolving into that shape to then turn into Venusaur. I see why they wanted to kind of shape him like that because it's shaping him in the middle to become Venusaur. But I really think that the final product makes better sense. I think that they were getting a little ahead with the blooming part of him. I feel like as the middle evolution, it does represent him finally blooming, like working toward blooming into Venusaur. I'm not really wild about the spikes on his head either. The original Scyther versus final Scyther. I think that this is certainly an upgrade. I'm very glad we ended up with the Scyther we had. Everything from the color scheme to the wings. Because the original one, he just looks like he really can't fly from how round he is. But also, he looks more like a praying mantis that's just fattened up with Charizard's head, if you ask me. I feel like we got served properly with Scyther, especially the feet to having the claws and everything. Scyther final version looks suitable for fighting, whereas the first one is like, okay, you probably have power, but you're a bug type too, so like, I don't know, something about the original. I'm glad that he got revised into the final version. Just major refinement that went on. But that little roundness going on, nah, that wasn't really gonna fly very well. And the wings, they needed help. They just looked too basic, too simple. I'm just trying to imagine him pulling up on Pokemon Stadium 2 or the Pokemon Stadium games from the time, and he wouldn't have looked right. He would have looked very out of place. And there you guys have it. That's it. Those are the ones that I wanted to revise today. Let me know your thoughts on any of those. I think that they were mostly upgrades. Almost all of them were upgrades. And the ones that didn't get upgrades, scores from my part. Dragonite, I think, is the most impactful one because I seriously think that the original Dragonite looks more dragony than the final version. Okay, that's it. Bye.